And this is everything that I've been using to keep my knife sharp. So a bunch of sharpeners and this honing steel. But what if I told you that all of this can be replaced with something that's even easier to use and just as good? Let me introduce you to the Tumbler Sharpener. This sharpener is one of the best and most innovative sharpeners that I've ever seen. It's super easy to use. It's really effective. Let me show you how it works. Let's check out the box. I think the design of the box is really nice. It also shows how small it is. If you're given this for a gift, this is definitely something that's gonna look like a cool gift. In fact, when this came in the mail, my wife thought it was a piece of jewelry. It was so like well designed. So if we open up the box, you can see that there's not much in here. So we got our magnet holder. So this is what's gonna hold the knife when we're doing our sharpening. Got two sides, a 15 and a 20, and we'll talk more about that later in the video, which side you're gonna use. And then we got the tumbler itself. So this thing it feels heavy too. So like when I buy something and it feels heavy, I like the feeling that it's heavy. Things that cost money should have some weight to them. This feels like it's worth every dollar, and we haven't even used it yet. In addition to the holder and the tumbler, there's also this leather strop. I'm not even too sure how to pronounce it. I don't know how you would pronounce this word, S-T-R-O-P. This piece of leather is the last step in the polishing process, and we'll show that after we sharpen the knife, but this is what really gives the knife razor sharpness all the way at the end. It also comes with this really nice holder. I like when things can be displayed nicely, so this isn't going to end up inside the kitchen junk drawer where it's just going to flop around. We could just keep this on the counter. It's also a constant reminder to use it and keep your knife sharp. Sometimes when stuff goes away inside the cabinets, you're not going to use it until you find out that your knife's dull. The best time to do something is before you need it, not when you need it. Let's take a look at how this thing sharpens a knife and how simple and easy it is to use. So we're gonna take our knife and it's gonna attach really easy to the holder with our magnet, and I'm gonna put it so that the knife is touching the table and the magnet is positioned in the middle of the knife. We're gonna take the tumbler, and with just light pressure along the edge of the knife, I'm gonna roll from one side all the way to the other, going from tip to tail on the knife really gently, and I don't have to put a lot of pressure. It's generally recommended that this sharpening process take between 1 and 5 minutes based upon the dullness of the knife. This knife's not terrible, so we're gonna do this for about 3 minutes on one side and about 3 minutes on the other, and I'll show you along the way what are the signs that we're looking for that we know that we're getting closer to the end. One of the great things I like about this is I do not have to maintain the angle. Just like the sharpening system that I reviewed in my last video, this maintains that angle for me, unlike the whetstone, which requires a lot of skill. This takes the skill out of it, and I'm not a professional knife sharpener, so I really don't want to use anything that requires too much skill. When I get close to the knife tip, I might want to spend just a couple of strokes on this side just to get the roundness, because this knife's got just a tiny little bit of flex to it. So I'll follow that flex with the roller and just spend a little bit more time at the tip, and then start going all the way from one end all the way to the other. Nice long strokes. So after about 3 minutes on one side, you can see that there's some metal particles collecting on the edge of the knife, especially down over here. This is probably a really good example of that. You can see that those little metal particles are sticking up. That's called the burr, and that we know that we've removed enough metal to the tip of the knife, and that's generally a good indication we've gone far enough. And then we just flip over to the other side to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just gonna flip this knife this way, touching the table. I like to use the same hand to do the motion back and forth, so I'm just gonna hold this with my left hand and do the same thing, running from tip to tail all the way on one side to the other, and making sure that my magnet is right in the middle to give the best support for this knife. You can see all these metal filings, so you could definitely tell this is removing metal from the edge of the knife. There, you can see that on my finger right there, so that we're removing metal. Look at all that metal that came off. Now we're gonna switch from our diamond side to our honing side, and our honing side is gonna replace our honing steel. This is gonna make sure that we're straightening out all the microscopic metal on the edge of the blade. I'm not gonna do this for as long as I did the other one. Here, I'm just gonna take maybe 5 or 6 passes on one side, 5 or 6 on the other. And I'm using the same amount of light pressure. Flip over. Same thing on the other side. I'm gonna give this knife a quick rinse and a wipe just to get off the metal filings before we use the leather strop. So the leather strop is probably an optional step, but it's probably a really good one, especially if we wanna make this thing razor sharp. So this is really simple. We're just going to, just like our honing steel, keep the blade flat on the edge, and I'm using this to polish the edge. It's not removing any metal, but it's making microscopic straightenings of all the metal on the edge of the blade to make sure that it's nice and razor sharp and there's nothing that's not aligned. And we'll just do this on both sides. I would use the same technique that I would on our whetstone. And just a couple pulls on one side and a couple on the other. And I'm trying to keep the blade as flat, or the edge of the blade as flat to the strop as possible. This thing is polished and crazy razor sharp. Some common mistakes I see when people are sharpening is one, first using the wrong angle. I like how this simplifies it down to 20 and 15. Your 20 degree are gonna be for most of your Western style knives. So if you have a knife that looks like this in the kitchen, you wanna use the 20 degree one. So if you have a Damascus steel knife that has super hard steel, it can hold a better edge, so you can go down to the 15, or if you have any of these Japanese style knives, this we're going to use the 15 degree. So if we would use this, we would do the same exact thing, except using our 15 degree edge. You can see when I'm sharpening the 15 degree in this Japanese style, the steel is much harder. Even though the knife is just as long, there's very little flex at the edge of the blade. I don't have to ride the edge of the blade and ride that curve. I can just go from tip to tail, and this knife stays relatively straight compared to the Western style knife. Another common mistake is people don't sharpen the knife for long enough. So if you don't see that burr developing by the end of your sharpening, you may want to spend a little bit more time. The next most common mistake is keeping the magnet too close to the handle. So if I do this as I go out, and even maintaining light pressure, I'm gonna pop the blade off the magnet. I want to position the magnet towards the middle of the blade. So I got some blade on this side and I got some blade on that side. So as I'm going through, I never create too much leverage that's going to pop the knife off of the magnet. With this light pressure, the magnet doesn't pop off in either direction. The same thing would happen if I was too close here. As I would get close to the edge of the knife, it would pop the knife off the blade. So if you're seeing a lot of this, just find a position at which the magnet stays in contact with the knife with that light pressure all the way through. Even if the knife has a good position relative to the magnet, if I use too much pressure, I can pop the knife off in any of these positions. So if the knife looks like it's in the center and you've already adjusted that, and you're seeing your knife pop off, you're probably pushing too hard into it. This doesn't need a whole lot of pressure. It just needs very, very light touch. So just keep it in contact the whole time. If like your arms are getting tired while you're doing this too, you're probably holding and using a little too much pressure too. For people that maybe aren't that physically strong, or maybe you have some type of disability, this is a very easy thing to use. It doesn't require great physical strength or dexterity. You can see that the knife is pretty sharp, but if we take this lemon and we put it up here, you can see we went right through it, no problem. Took the top right off that thing. Perfectly clean slice. I mean, we're doing mid-air slicings. This thing's coming out razor, razor sharp. Let's see if we can do the same thing with our Japanese style knife. This apple is a little denser than the lemon. I was was terrible. Cut the bottom off. It went underneath it. I mean, that's as clean of a slice as we can get. Sure does. Please don't try this at home. I don't think I'll miss this one. I think it's big enough that I'll get all the way through it. Oh, I missed, but it went straight through. Let's see if we can do that one more time. I wish my aim was a little bit better. All the way straight through. Honeydew melon, which is a pretty solid thing. I mean, if that knife wasn't sharp, it wasn't going through. I know this is way outside of what you really do inside the kitchen, but if your knife can do this, we know that this knife is super sharp. I am a real big fan of this. Probably moving forward, this will be the sharpener that I'm keeping in the kitchen and I'm gonna use all the time. To get yours, Tumbler's giving a very generous discount of over 20%. So if you click the link in the description, you can find everything there on Tumbler store. Thanks for watching.